Hello, and welcome to GatherVerse News Unscripted, your home for humanity centered tech journalism. I'm Lisa Bernard. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, like every Wednesday, we will bring you our Pioneer Profile. It's where we take an in depth look at someone who is a leader in Web3 and who is also at the same time considering the impact on society and humanity that all this developing tech is having. Today, we will introduce you to Avi Bar Zeev. Avi will take a look at the ethics and the importance of ethics in the metaverse. And we'll have that for you in just a little bit. But first, let's take a look at some tech headlines in the news today. Apple is showcasing some new accessibility features, including a new technology called live speech. It lets users create their own synthesized voice for in person conversations, both on phone calls and on FaceTime. What users do is they type in what they want to say, and then it's spoken aloud during FaceTime or a phone call. And the way they record it is using a personal voice of their choosing, their own or a voice they'd like to use. And they read along with a randomized set of text prompts to record 15 minutes of audio on iPhone or iPad. And this is part of a wider range of new tech designed to help people with visual or cognitive impairments. During a shareholder meeting, Tesla CEO Elon Musk unveiled new footage of the Tesla bot, showcasing significant progress since it was first revealed. We're going to take a look at that video and show it along with you. It's a robot that is now walking a little bit more smoothly. It still walks slowly, but it has motor control. And as you can see, it can walk on its own. It has motor torque control, as it's showing you here, able to touch things. Can't quite crack the egg. It has environment discovery and memorization. And also, it's collecting information all the time as they're continuing to advance it. And here you can see how it is learning from human demonstrations. And that is how the AI is learning. And finally, in our headlines today, would you trade your privacy for a giant TV? Telly plans to give away 500,000 55-inch TVs this summer, but these TVs come with a catch. Telly will trade the free TVs for user data. It'll sell targeted living room ad space to advertisers. The TVs come equipped with sensors, a camera, a microphone, and an always listening AI voice assistant, which makes you wonder about your privacy. And now let's have our Pioneer Profile. As I said, every Wednesday, we bring you an in-depth look at someone who is at the cutting edge of technology, but in their work, they are very mindful of the consequences of humanity, the consequences of their tech on society and on humans. And today we introduce you to Avi Bar Zeev. Avi co-invented the Microsoft HoloLens in 2010. He helped define Amazon Echo frames in 2015. And then he contributed at Apple on undisclosed projects. He has recently turned his attention to publicly urging companies to consider ethics in the metaverse. And to that end, he created a nonprofit called the XR Guild. Here's our conversation with Avi Bar Zeev. We are speaking with Avi Bar Zeev for GatherVerse News. Avi has worked for the past 30 years at the forefront of XR and the Metaverse at companies like Apple and Amazon, Microsoft, and Disney, among others. And he is now turning his attention to ensuring that the Metaverse is ethical. Avi, if you would, tell us a little bit how the beginning of your career and the things you've worked on thus far have led you to this mission now.
I've been very lucky in my career. I've been given some very good opportunities, and early on I got to work on fun toys at Disney meant for entertainment, so there wasn't a lot of risk. But when I worked at Microsoft, starting around 2008, 2012, I started seeing the impact a lot of these technologies had on people. And there was a lot of news about other companies as well and what they were doing. And some of the things that we were advocating for had downsides. And I started to learn a lot more about those downsides. And then later on when I worked at Apple, I had a really good opportunity to work with people who had been thinking about this also for a really long time. I was very impressed by the privacy stances they were taking. And I got to see privacy policies implemented firsthand in ways that are meant to protect the consumer. So it was a very good experience overall.
So what were your concerns? What are your current concerns with ethics in the metaverse?
I think the biggest concern is that this field, if you call it computer science, design, everything required for the metaverse and XR, I don't think anyone is ever taught ethics. And so a lot of people make the same mistakes over and over again as they gain experience and learn. And I think we have a real opportunity to take what we've already learned over the last 30 years and share it with people who could use that information to make better decisions about their own products. And ultimately, the theory is everybody wants to do well. Everybody wants their products to be loved by real people. But not everybody achieves that. People make mistakes, and a lot of those mistakes come from either inexperience or from just not looking at all the other mistakes that people have made in the past. So I think there's a lot to learn from. There's a lot of education. And I think the more that we support each other in terms of making ethical decisions, the better our results will be. So somebody inside of a big company can raise their hand and say, why are we doing this? This might cause a problem. This particular approach, let's just say a company wants to be able to sell some sort of mixed reality headset. Well, how do we know that children aren't being hurt by that? Because they're going to want to use it. My son wants to use VR all the time. And so how do we make sure that they're safe? And one of the ways to do it is to make sure that kids have their own protected account, so the parents can set the permissions of what the kids are allowed to see or not see, and set time limits as well to make sure that the kids aren't spending too much time in it. It's more important to your company to pretend that kids aren't using your headset than to make sure the kids are protected. You're going to make one set of decisions versus a very pro-privacy, pro-child kind of policy, which says, let's do everything we can to make sure these kids are safe. And you see all those different decisions made differently in different companies. We want to try to normalize that more and say, this is probably the best way to do it that we found so far. If you have a better one, let us know. But this is one of the best ways to make sure kids stay safe.
And so to that end, you founded the XR Guild, which is doing exactly that. You say, for the goodness of humanity, you feel that this is critical going forward. Tell me about the work there.
Everybody in it is a professional in the field. And you also have to agree to a set of principles that we provided that are evolving principles. And if both those things are true, you can join the Guild. And we just started last June, so we're not that big yet, but we're in the process of raising money and adding membership. The goal is, maybe 1,000 people this year, maybe 5 years out, 20,000, 50,000 people, but we're trying to get everybody in the field to say, that's important to me too. I want to join, I want to participate in this effort to share the best knowledge and make sure everybody is aligned ethically.
What are the ethical principles? I know one thing is you want the programmers, the developers, the creators to think about the people on the other side, right? What are your effects on real people?
Most of these are going to overlap with other schools of thought on design, like privacy by design or safety by design. They always focus on thinking about the impact of the technology on the people who are going to be using it, making sure they're represented, making sure they're respected, making sure they're listened to, and then making sure we do everything we can to make sure that they stay safe and get what they need out of the use of the technology. And I wish I could say that was always the case today, but a lot of people are being harmed in various ways with existing products that are out there. A good example of one is if you find dark patterns, and dark patterns are defined as things that trick you. You might have two buttons on the screen. One is really big that says yes, and one is really small that says no. The company is trying to get you to hit the yes button, but that's a dark pattern, and no one might be the right choice. If, for example, if it's do you want to give up your private information, right? They're forcing you to say yes because they're kind of pushing you in that direction, but people should really think about whether they really want to give up their private information or not. One of our principles is find those dark patterns, expose them, and change them because they're not good for people.
And one of the things you've spoken about in terms of privacy is having line item privacy opt-in or opt-out. Is that right?
Yeah, a good example is, so I've spent a lot of time on eye tracking as a particular danger, and I totally advocate the use of eye tracking when it's safe. It's going to be one of these technologies that's going to make us feel superpowered because the computer can almost read our intentions and figure out what we're trying to do and make it better. But it's also the same technology is used in marketing today to figure out how people think about products. And if that's done to us against our will or without our knowledge, it can be very invasive. In fact, we could have a loss of mental autonomy. Today, some of the major companies say opt in or opt out. You can either turn eye tracking on or off. And of course, people are going to want to turn it on because they have avatars. They want the avatar's eyes to move with their natural eye motions. So they're going to turn it on. And they don't understand the dangers. So what we'd advocate instead is to say every particular use of eye tracking should have a sort of a switch that says, do I want it or not want it? So I can opt in to having my avatar's eyes work, but opt out of my eye tracking be used for marketing studies or to advertise to me. That should be the level of control that anybody has a right to expect.
And again, to that point, there are some very exciting things that eye tracking will allow, and then some of them are quite dangerous, right? This is what you're talking about, some examples of how it manipulates us.
The future advertising is going to know what your triggers are, what particular things get you excited or upset, and it's going to be able to use those in a much more experiential way. So I'll give you a good example. Through the use of eye tracking, we could be changing the world subtly around us. When you're not looking at something, it can turn into something else. So you could have a Chevy on the street and it turns into a Dodge when you're not looking. And you might not remember what it was, so you don't even notice the change. Once we figure out what kind of car you like, we can then take your best friends, who we also know either from your social graph or from who your eyes are telling us you care about. Your pupils dilate when you're excited about something or when you're interested in something. So by watching that, we can tell who you're attracted to, or who you're interested in, or who you're not interested in. And now the commercial can change to this experiential environment in which you're shown the car that you like, and your friends are maybe indirectly used, maybe not literally, so you can't prove it was them, but they look like them, they remind you of them. And that fosters trust in us when somebody looks like somebody we know. So now they're in the car, and maybe they even want to use jealousy. So they'll take the person you're most attracted to secretly and your best friend and put them in the car. And now how are you going to feel about that when you see this car driving by? It might not even be labeled as a commercial anymore. It might just be part of the overall experience, designed to get you to react.
That is amazing and fascinating and scary. Are you optimistic about the future with XR?
I think we can fix this. Yeah, I think that if we educate everybody about these use cases, and we, in some cases, need regulation to make sure that the companies are not abusing our data. In fact, one small piece of regulation I think would make a big difference is to say, there are companies out there that advertise, and that's a First Amendment right. We don't want to censor the advertising because that could be political advertising, it could be all sorts of advertising that has a public benefit. But we don't want the companies using our personal data as part of the advertising in the way that, say, Cambridge Analytica used our personal data to try to persuade people not to vote. And that could have had an effect on the overall election. And certainly in some countries, there's examples of where Cambridge Analytica suppressed the vote so much that it had a huge impact on the election. So we should keep the personal data separate from the advertising. The advertising doesn't need the personal data, and it's better off with the old school advertising that just didn't know who the audience was. And keep our personal data private.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you so much for speaking with us for GatherVerse News.
Thank you.
Our thanks again to Avi Bar Zeev, and a huge thanks to Alan Filippi with ADF Video Bay Area for his exceptional work editing that piece for us. Thank you so much, Alan. We would like to build our reporting based on what you're interested in learning more about. Please share your ideas with us. We will drop a link in the live stream here for you to add a comment, or go to the website, gatherverse.org/news, and share your ideas with us. And we will take them and research them for you. On tomorrow's show, I will be speaking with Danny Cohen. Are the robots coming to take our jobs? Danny, who is an award-winning staffing specialist in STEM, talks with us about AI and the future of work. He will help us embrace the challenge presented by the AI disruption. And he'll also talk to us about his role as the co-chair of the 50/50 Women on Boards, which works for gender balance and diversity on corporate boards. That is tomorrow, right here at noon. If you'd like to get your business in front of hundreds of people who are also interested in emerging tech, please check out sponsorship opportunities at gatherverse.org. There you go. That's where you go, GatherVerse.org/partnership if you want to be a sponsor of this show. And I will be back here tomorrow at noon Pacific time, same time wherever you are in the world. Hope to see you then. Have a great day.